Hello, welcome to today's chapters from Who Let the Gods Out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off 23. I had a teeny bit left yesterday, but my time cut off, and then go on to chapter 24. Might go over 2 videos because chapter 24 is a little longer. However, it's my favourite chapter of the book. There we go. I've said it. So we left off with Elliot and Virgo desperately trying to rescue the crown before it went to Buckingham Palace. We had Hypnos kind of jinxing or bewitching, I'd go for, the beefeaters who were then kind of showing up the gods. The gods were a little bit out of shape and weren't having much luck fighting them. And yeah, that was where we left off. So we had... "No!" cried Elliot. "The crown's leaving." Elliot and Virgo watched in horror as the 3 trucks rumbled slowly across the cobblestones and out of the tower in a row. "Which truck is it in?" said Virgo. "It was the middle one," said Elliot. "Which one's the middle one?" said Virgo. "I don't know," shouted Elliot as the 3 identical lorries rolled down the hill. "Quick," said Virgo. "Let's get the others." They looked around the green to where Hermes was yelping like a wounded kitten. Athene was being marched into the gift shop with a pike at her back. Aphrodite was jammed between Steve, Jim, and a caravan catalogue. And Zeus was in a headlock looking at cat selfies. My kind of selfies, if I'm honest. "No time," said Elliot, grabbing Hermes' bag and jumping back on Pegasus. "We have to get to Buckingham Palace before Hypnos. Pegasus, take us to the Queen." Chapter 24, by Royal Command. Under the cover of the invisibility helmet, Pegasus flew above the security trucks all the way to Buckingham Palace. Riding on the horse's back, Elliot and Virgo looked out for Hypnos in case he tried to attack again, but there was no sign of the demon anywhere. 30 minutes later, they were peering through the windows of the Queen's London home. It was quite a view. They could see a maid pocketing some of the silver cutlery she was supposed to be polishing in the kitchen, and a footman trying on the Queen's dresses in the robing room. They found Queen Elizabeth II in her private parlour around the back of the palace. Dressed in an elegant white gown with a purple sash draped from her right shoulder to her left hip, the Queen was reading the newspaper and slicing a crumpet with the sword of state. The imperial crown sparkled brilliantly on top of her regal head. Elliot looked at the beautiful earthstone shimmering in the centre. The answer to all his problems. It was so close, which meant Hypnos must be too. "What do we do now?" asked Virgo. "Should we smash through the window?" "I think we'd better knock," said Elliot, unsure of the correct protocol for approaching the Queen of Great Britain on a flying horse. With Pegasus hovering steadily outside the window, Elliot leant over and tapped as politely as he could manage on the glass. The Queen looked straight at Elliot and Virgo, but returned to her paper. "We've just been blanked by the Queen," said Elliot indignantly. "And to think my Nan had a mug with her picture on it." "That invisibility helmet suits you," said Virgo with a sigh. "It matches your invisible brain." Elliot snatched off the helmet, making sure that Virgo received a good nudge in the ribs, took a deep breath, and knocked once more. The Queen looked up again, and she was startled to see 2 children on a flying horse outside her window. She had the good manners not to show it. Elliot smiled politely, and Virgo gave her an enthusiastic wave, which the Queen courteously returned with an elegant swivel of her wrist. Not taking her eyes from the window, she slowly removed her glasses and put her newspaper down on the golden tea table in front of her. She walked over to the window and opened it. "Good morning," she said calmly to her visitors. "May I help you?" Good morning, Your Majesty," said Elliot, attempting a clumsy bow on Pegasus's back. "Can we come in, please? We have something really important to ask you." "I see," said the Queen. "To whom does one have the pleasure of speaking?" "One is whom I'm Elliot," he said quickly, abandoning any attempt at talking posh. "Elliot Hooper. And this is Virgo. She's an immortal." "Hello, the Queen," chirped Virgo with a big grin. "How do you do?" said the Queen. "You'd better come in." As Her Majesty helped Elliot and Virgo to dismount from Pegasus and clamber through the window, Elliot became aware of an insistent snorting behind him. "And this is Pegasus," said Elliot, as he landed on the soft carpet of the Queen's parlour. "He's a flying horse," he added, quickly realising that the Queen had probably worked that out for herself. "Your Majesty," said Pegasus grandly, dropping into an elegant bow. "Welcome, Mr. Pegasus," said the Queen, acknowledging his bow with a gracious nod of her head. "I can honestly say that you are the most magnificent horse I have ever seen." "I can honestly say that you are correct," said Pegasus, sweeping into another bow as Elliot leant out of the window and put the invisibility helmet over his white head to conceal him from view. Elliot and Virgo fidgeted awkwardly in the middle of the parlour as the Queen closed the window and turned to greet her visitors. "May I offer you some tea and crumpets?" she asked. "No, thank you, we don't have much time," started Virgo. "Oh, yeah," belted Elliot, whose stomach had been rumbling since the tower. "With some peanut butter, if you have some, please, your Majesty," he trailed off, as a sub-zero look from Virgo reminded him that this really wasn't the time. "I'll see what I can do, Mr. Hooper," smiled the Queen, her eyes sparkling as she rang a small silver bell on the table. She sat back down in her chair, neatly repositioned her flowing white gown, and straightened the purple sash across her right shoulder. "Now," she said, folding her hands in her lap, "what can I do for you?" "Right," said Elliot, beginning slowly. "There's no easy way to say this, so I'm going to get straight to the point. That crown you're wearing contains a diamond that's really a chaos stone and has the power to control the earth. It's that one, there." Elliot reached out and pointed at the stone, his fingers tantalisingly close to his home's salvation. "We need to take it so that a death demon called Thanatos can't get his hands on it, or the other 3 chaos stones, which we're also trying to find, and release his demon army and attack mortals and immortals with earthquakes and floods and fires and plagues and other really bad stuff." He sighed at the lunacy of his own tale. "You think I'm insane and you're going to lock me up in the Tower of London, aren't you?" The Queen calmly took a sip of her tea and stared intently at the young boy before her. "Your tale is incredible indeed, Mr. Hooper," she said evenly, "but you'd be surprised what one might believe from 2 children who have arrived on a flying horse. And for the record, I prefer to lock people up in Windsor Castle these days," she added with a twinkle. "The heating's rather better." She picked up the small silver bell and rang it again. "I can't think what's taken Jeffers so long. He's normally so prompt," she said, looking at the white double doors. Elliot wondered if Jeffers was the man they had seen in the robing room, who was probably struggling to undo the zip on the pink frock he'd been wearing a few minutes ago. "But to return to your request, Mr. Hooper, do I understand correctly that you would like me to give you the Imperial State Crown so that you may guard this Earthstone from Thanatos?" said the Queen. "Yes," said Elliot, slightly surprised that his garbled explanation had been that clear. "We'd replace it," said Virgo, pointing at Hermie's bag. "Oh, yes," said Elliot, plunging his hand into the bag, which seemed to go on forever before meeting his grasp. "We'd like to exchange it for this." He pulled his hand out with a proud flourish, expecting the new crown to be met with gasps of delight from the Queen. But upon seeing her politely confused expression and hearing Virgo's groan, he looked more closely at what he had produced from the bag. In return for the priceless Imperial State Crown atop Her Majesty's head, Elliot Hooper was now standing in her private parlour, offering the Queen a large rubber chicken. "Oh, sorry," he said, thrusting the chicken back in the bag. Virgo rolled her eyes. Elliot had another rummage around before pulling his hand out again, this time producing the replica crown. "I meant this." Now the Queen grasped on cue at Hephaestus's astonishing work. The crowns were identical. "May I?" asked the Queen. "Sure," said Elliot, bringing the new crown to her, deciding a small curtsy would be appropriate as he handed it over. The Queen turned the replica Imperial State Crown in her hands, looking highly impressed. "It's certainly much lighter than this, old lump," she said, raising her eyes. "I must admit I've never cared much for it. It's far too heavy. This is exquisite." "Oh, and another thing," said Elliot, remembering the blacksmith's demonstration the night before. "Hephaestus, that's the man, well, God really, who made it, thought you might like this." Elliot placed the crown on the table in front of the Queen and pressed a large ruby on the side. The crown quietly started to rumble, a small wisp of steam swirling from the top for a few moments, until there was a gentle ping. Elliot lifted the crown to reveal a small golden cup and saucer. which was filled to the brim with steaming tea. The sapphire on the back makes coffee, and every turn of the cross on the top will give you a lump of sugar, he said nervously, as the Queen stared at the crown in amazement. Do you like it? I think it's quite wonderful, Mr. Hooper. But speaking of tea, what on earth has become of yours? This really is most unlike Jeffers, she said, insistently ringing her bell again. So, can we swap it for yours? Asked Virgo impatiently. We'll return the rest of the crown. Well, said the Queen, it's a little difficult. She was interrupted as a footman, whom Elliot presumed must be the delayed Jeffers, flung the white doors open with a flourish. Here's Jeffers, he sang, throwing his arms wide open. Jeffers, said the Queen cautiously. Would you be so kind as to fetch my guest? Get it yourself, Granny, Jeffers laughed back, looking from one crown to the other. I beg your pardon, said the Queen. Which one's got the earthstone? Grinned Jeffers, holding out his hand. Give it. I can't say I care for your tone, Jeffers, said the Queen warily, rising to her feet. Whatever's got into you? That would be me, screeched the footman, his face growing wings and wildness as he dissembled back into Hypnos. Now hand over the goods, you wrinkly royal. If the Queen had any thoughts about her footman melting into a wing-headed demon, she kept them to herself. Elliot looked around the room to see what he could use to defend his elderly monarch. He had placed Her Majesty in great danger. It was down to him to protect her. Give me the crown and I'll let you get back to your nap, Nana, winked Hypnos. You'll have to get for us first, shouted Virgo, charging at Hypnos, hoping to knock him off his feet. But her small frame was useless against the demon of sleep. He picked her up and threw her against the wall like a used tissue. Have it your way, Hypnos snapped at the Queen, pushing her aside to get to Elliot, leaving the monarch in a pile of lace petticoats on the floor. I'll deal with you in a minute, Queen. First things first. Hypnos seized Elliot by the neck. Grabbing the nearest thing to hand, Elliot hit the demon with a gold cake stand, but he may as well have attacked him with a banana. Without even flinching, Hypnos lifted Elliot off the ground and started to choke him. Thanatos says hi, he smiled, raising his trumpet to his lips. Sleep well. No, you don't, screamed Virgo, running at the demon again, jumping on his back and smashing the Queen's teapot on his head. Hypnos dropped Elliot and the trumpet to the floor with a shriek, holding his burning head in his hands. Virgo kicked his trumpet away. Playtime's over, he shouted, wiping scalding tea from his eyes. He walked menacingly towards the window that Elliot and Virgo were struggling to open, while Pegasus kicked at the glass. Hypnos reached them before they could make their escape and towered over them, holding his fists aloft. Sorry, kids, he winked as he drew himself up to put his full height behind the blow. This is gonna hurt. And I'm going to leave it there. You'll need to go on to the next video to find out what happens in the rest of the chapter. All right, see you in a bit. Bye.